All right. Are we rolling? Yeah, I think we're rolling. All right. Welcome to beautiful, beautiful Goodview, Virginia. As you can see, we've had a little bit of a snowstorm. Yet again, snowstorm on top of our snowstorm. Always lovely. It's about 20 degrees out this morning, so gonna try to make this video a little bit short, but we will see. First thing I want to do is get into basically an introduction to self-sustainability, what it means to take care of your own necessities, and maintain a good level of morale and be able to live with hardly nothing, minimal requirements, minimal expenses, minimal dependability, minimal need for the everyday general public and society. You know, a lot of people who live out in the country, a lot of this stuff is pretty natural to you. It's not anything that's far off from what you're used to. But, you know, as with everything, you know, a secondary perspective can give you tips and tricks that you may have overlooked or just have been oblivious to, or may not even have been willing to consider previously. So, a general list of things that you're going to need to be self-sustaining. You're going to need land before anything. You're going to need a fairly large, there's people who can fully sustain an entire family off of just simply a quarter acre, a half acre. And then there's people who need, you know, 10, 20 to 400 acres to be able to sustain themselves. But land is number one. And when it comes to moving out into the country, being self-sufficient, getting away from society and living more private and secluded and more in tune with nature, one of the biggest difficulties you're going to run into is the first one that comes off the gate, and that's location. Land can be difficult to buy, so we're talking about, you know, in most people's cases who doesn't have 5 figures to lay out on a piece of land, you're having to look at good credit. You're going to have to look at a pretty extensive, fair amount of paper trail and income. Credit is king these days. You know, but be mindful you don't get to disappear at that point. You'll have to be able to accumulate an income and afford that property for a long period of time. So, be ready for that, you know. Out here in Virginia, you know, it's safe to say if you wanted to purchase a piece of land, 5 to 10 acres, you're going to be looking at something. You're going to want to spend about the $30,000 range. You know, you're not looking for sewer hookups. God forbid, don't pay for your well, because that's one of the stupidest things you can really do. One of the most self-neglectful things that you can do is pay out for things and work your ass off for things that you can frankly just do yourself. So like digging your own well. In most cases, you're going to be able to do that yourself. You know, you don't need to pay this company of, you know, weirdos to come out there and charge you $5,000 to $20,000 so that you can pour water into your house. It's just not really practical. You don't need electrical because, let's face it, when you live simplistically, you don't really need the amount of electricity that most people are used to, unless you wanted to go the route of electric heat. You wanted to build something that was a substantially large house with a great deal of square footage, you know, and you wanted that ventilation and air filtration, the HVAC and all of that. But in reality, you just simply don't need that. We live in an age where, stop paying a power bill. Go on Amazon, order $300 to $1,200 solar kits, build it yourself, build an understanding for the systems and energy development, and go from there. If you see that you're only obtaining 50% of the solar power that you need to sustain yourself, then double up the budget, double up the time to put in the setup, and double up the spacing that you're going to need for that setup. And again, you now have a piece of land with its own electricity and its own water. So a main thing you're going to need, obviously, is shelter. Shelter is going to be number one. Because let's face it, there's no point in sitting there buying a piece of land and just living under a tarp in it. So there's multiple ways to build your own home. When you live secluded out in the woods like this, there's really no reason to follow code. I mean, there's a huge misconception that the government's going to come and get you because your studs aren't far enough apart, and that's just baloney. It's just not true. It's just not true. Done this for quite some time, and I can be honest with you, there's so many laws and things that they set up that they screw themselves out of that. There's certain heights and widths and square footages and certain building materials and things that you can use that dodges all of that. But if you don't want to do the homework, if you want to have some common sense, skip all of that, ignore their baloney and get straight to the meat and potatoes and build and live into your own structure, feel free to look at the many different options you have. You can bring in storage containers that cost $1,000 to $3,000 a piece. You can put small cabins together with basic logs because you need this spot cleared out anyways so that you can put your shelter there. Might as well take some of those logs and trees that you killed and cut down and put them to good use. You can, I built cabins out of pallets. You can scab and screw pallets together and have a very nice, very strong and long-lasting cabin. So literally, if you have water sources where you can extract cob or clay, literally twigs and mud will build you a sufficient home. And it's up to you to what grade and degree that you want to go into it. Now, if you bake and harden that stone properly, I mean, you're able to drill right into it. You can put wood paneling up. You can put up insulation. I mean, the possibility is endless. And when you come out here, it isn't just about having intelligence, money, resources. A lot of those things are getting pushed right out of the window, and we're skipping straight to utilizing our creativity. How creative can you be? Your creativity is what's going to set your limitation, because money you can get. It's a lot more difficult to get more creative. So another thing you're going to have to worry about is food. Food is a big, huge thing, and frankly, let's face it, it's not hard to grow a garden. It just isn't. I mean, it's just not. A lot of people in the city are receiving government food vouchers, which could purchase seeds. Seeds are $2 a pack. There's just really no excuse for you to be able to grow your own food. Problem is, what if you wanted to do that here in the wintertime? Again, society has smartened up, and we no longer live in the Stone Age of the 1900s. And you can go on Amazon today and find greenhouses for as low as $150. These may not be year-round, but this will definitely extend your growing season and your actual yield, and how much of that you produce, and the quality as well. So, when growing your own food, because of things like this, you're going to have to understand stuff about food preservation. You're going to have to understand how to can, jar, lard, and everything else, dry your food, so that you can, because, I mean, if you have a deep freezer, good for you. Reality of it is, it's a lot of extra trouble. A little bit of research will explain to you just how to preserve your food and keep it for many years, longer than what electricity could ever store your food for. Canned foods last longer than frozen. That's just what it is. Okay. Another big factor that goes into being self-sustaining and living out, especially, again, referring back to this winter season where you see nothing but snow around me, and minimum vegetation to be able to block out wind and the direct elements, is a heat source. you're in the woods. You can't harvest or grow gasoline. Get a wood stove. It's common sense. There's 80-year-old people out here heating their houses with wood, chopping wood. You can do it. It's not very hard. Sit out there for an hour and get you 2-3 weeks worth of wood cut. It's not difficult. An axe, a chainsaw, and a little bit of time. Nowadays, they make foldable wood stoves for tents as low as $50. And then they have some that are, $600. A lot of times you can find these that are, salvaged from houses that are being torn down. A lot of old homes came with wood stoves. So a lot of old homes that are being condemned, tore down, and busted down, well, pull the wood stove and put it to use. It took care of people for 100 years, 100 plus years. So you're not too good for it to take care of you. That's just, for morale purposes, I want to squeeze in real quick about morale. You're definitely going to want to have something for entertainment. A lot of people were so accustomed to certain things, and you may not be able to power a TV, radio, different things like that. So if you're somewhere with a cell phone connection, and even if you don't, get a cell phone. Go on Amazon. For $25, $35, you can buy solar phone chargers that with any amount of sunlight, even the slightest amount of light, can charge your phone. You can get Wi-Fi, internet boosters, and things like that, so you don't have to run these poles and lights and all out to you. I mean, it's every year it's getting easier and easier, slipping and sliding a little bit. It's getting easier and easier to do these things. It just is. And it's becoming more common sense. There's people who pay $300 a month to have internet in their home. There's people who pay $50, so it's all about perspective. It's all about perspective. But yeah, you need that morale. I went about 6 months where I didn't even cut my television on. Simply watched YouTube, Netflix, everything from my phone. It was just simpler and easier that way. Use electricity, saves time, saves money, saves effort. Honestly, you get used to it fairly quickly. Everyone's had that first apartment where they had to lean the phone up against the baseboard. Water is a big thing. A lot of people wouldn't piece together to take this snow and melt it down over, their wood stove, and bam, there you go. Water collection, distribution, and filtration is a big thing. You can go a week or two without eating. You can only go about 3-4 days without water, and you die. So it's essential that you have some form of a water source near you, whether it be a creek, whether it be, rain collection, whatever the case may be. You're going to have transportation. That's just necessary. You don't want to come all the way out here in the middle of nowhere. Something happened, you need supplies, you get injured, whatever the case may be, and you have no way out. It could be a dirt bike, it could be a pedal bike, it could be a car, it could be whatever, works best for your particular situation. And with that being said, you need to have some basic first aid skills. You need to learn something about medical care, how to treat yourself if you get bitten by a snake, how to treat yourself if you fall and break your leg, if you gash open something, whatever the case may be. You need to have as much general knowledge of first aid and medical care that you can possibly have, and a lot of medicine on hand. You got to keep plenty of medicine. And one of the biggest things, it is the most valuable thing that we have. It's the most important thing that we have. It's the most precious thing that we have. It's more valuable than any money. It's more valuable than any land. It's time. You have to have time. You have to have time to invest. Be ready to finance a piece of property for several years. Be ready to take time in and out of the store shopping for the proper gear and essentials that you need. It's going to take time. It's going to take time. It's going to take perseverance. And it's going to take consistency. And that's just something that a lot of people, don't really have a lot of. But I promise you, it's just like anything. People out there who are entrepreneurs, every day, you put 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 hours if you can, into what you do. And those 5 minutes slowly start to form your business. Those little 15 intervals of you writing down notes and creating accounts and moving money here and, pushing these products here. It's what adds up to creating your business and what it's meant to be. So time is a big factor. If you're not willing to put the time into it, you're just not going to get the result. That's just the way it is. So these are just a few general things to keep in mind if you want to come out here and survive. So I hope that is useful, and I'll probably go a little bit more into depth with different videos in regards to each one. So subscribe, give a thumbs up, share it with a friend, absorb the information and pass it along to the next, so that we can develop a society that is more dependable and reliable. The government is not going to come and save you. They're not going to help you. The heat in your house goes off. They don't care. There's 7.2 billion people on the planet. They don't care if they lose one. That's just the case. If you can't feed yourself, no one cares. You can't shelter yourself, no one cares. That's it. So absorb the knowledge, pass the knowledge down, and let's make a better tomorrow for us all.